Today we're going to talk a little bit about A Rose for Emily by William Faulkner. There's a lot of stuff to be talked about in this particular story, but let's focus a little bit on kind of a post-colonial discussion of A Rose for Emily. So Emily is a elder member of this small southern town, and in this southern town she has a certain amount of privilege, I think we may call it, but privilege in a way that is granted only by this kind of patriarchal structure of her town and her position within that patriarchal structure. And what do I mean by that? Well, Emily's father has run off many suitors, and it says that clearly in the book, that the town pities her after her father's death, because they remember the many men that Emily could have been happy with. She could have gotten married, she could have had a life outside of her family, outside of this one single house. She could have actually been someone much different. But because of her father's very dominant kind of ruling her life, I guess, if that's a very rough way to put it, but I think you know what I mean. Her father has this power, this authority that society has granted him to dominate her life, and that he has kind of forbidden her, taken this opportunity away for her to move beyond his grasp. So when he dies, she is able to move up into a position of power within the household, but obviously not within society itself. She still doesn't have the same authority that men would have in this same society. So, how does she work about taking that power, or what power does she take from? How does she, to put it in the technical terms, how does she rehearse and overthrow the system, the hegemonic system of domination of which she is a part? And to say that in layman's term, how does she take the power that is given her and use it to its most effect? Well, first of all, she doesn't pay taxes. When the town comes to collect taxes, she refers them to Colonel Sartoris, who has been dead for 10 years, and the townspeople are basically powerless to collect taxes from her. That within this society, that they treat women as both subservient but yet privileged in other ways, right? So they're at a loss to, are they really going to break this idea of social etiquette and go and physically use the law to remove her from her house? No. So she gets out of paying taxes. When we all know that she ends up killing Homer Barron, poisoning him with arsenic, and then sleeping in the same bed with him for many, many years. When the smell is so bad from his rotting corpse in their house that they try to do something about it, when they ask, well, what should we do? When the aldermen say, well, you know, what should we do? The judge says, what would you have me do? Accuse a lady of smelling bad, right? That's a social breach in this system that they are all unwilling to cross. So because of this dominant system, and because of this kind of inequality, that there are these other methods by which she is allowed to kind of usurp that authority. Okay, so we also see another action of this. She goes to buy the arsenic to kill Homer Barron with, and the druggist seems to almost know what he's doing. You know, he's, well, what is it for, right? And no answer. Well, I need to put something on the package, and she's like, well, I'll send Toby to get it later. And so finally he's just forced to put on this package 4 rats. Gives her just a ton of poison without really knowing what it's for, and he becomes kind of suspicious, but what's he going to do? So again, Emily's using this power, not paying taxes, poisoning people, and not letting people in her house. She even refuses, if you remember, to let the people in her house for 3 days after her own father died, when they knew he was dead before. And then so finally she relented and let them in. So we see Emily taking the limited amount of power that she has in this social system, right? That, you know, her father was able to keep her from being married, and he has that authority and stuff. And but she's able to take this kind of limited authority and use it to her advantage, right? Overthrowing the hegemonic domination, or trying to somewhat. Okay, so what do we think about this? You know, what do we see in this? Is there a certain amount of a vision of the South, right, that is represented here, that is still true, right? Do we still see remnants of this social tradition playing out in modern America? And I'm just going to leave that open to you for your own discussions. But okay, so let's think about a few other things in the story, right? This kind of idea of social dominance. This Toby, her, I guess, for the lack of a better term, her house servant, lived in the same house with her for all of these years, and never said anything about. He obviously knew Homer Barron was dead upstairs. I don't think you could live in the house and not, you know, realize when someone has killed someone upstairs and the body is stinking and so on and so forth. You know, obviously he knew. But what did he do? He continued to live in the house for the rest of these years. And why? So why would someone do that? Why would you live in the house when your boss killed someone upstairs? Why would you continue to go on as if nothing had happened, right? And so what is the rational reason for this? Let me ask you, at this time, what would happen to Toby if he had went to the police and asked and told them what he saw or what had been done? Well, there's a couple of different scenarios that we could play out here. First of all, the police could not believe him. You know, that we would never believe you over Mrs. Emily. That's just never going to happen, right? We see the inequality when Homer Barron comes to town with the Negroes working to build the roads, that he's chastising them. They're obviously not considered equal. So I think it's reasonable for us to say that the police would have been, we don't believe you, Toby, and, you know, possibly even charge him with making a false accusation or something like that. Secondly, they could say, okay, yes, we will investigate, we will, you know, believe you and investigate this, and then they could go to the house, right, and then find Homer Barron's dead body, just as he said. But at that time, if the police were to ask Miss Emily what happened, you know, you killed this person, how easy would it have been for her to just say, no, actually it wasn't me, and it was Toby who had done this, and it wasn't me? And obviously, who are they going to believe? Again, Toby's going to get the short end of the stick here, and probably end up costing him his freedom, if not his life. So Toby is kind of situated under this same kind of umbrella, hegemonic umbrella, that is holding him in place too. And I think that's a very powerful thing. You know, it's so powerful that you would be forced to continue on living in this house with this dead person, because that there is no other real way. You know, at the end of the story, when Miss Emily dies, we see him finally kind of able to make his escape, right? That he lets the women in from the town, and he turns around, and then he leaves from the back door, and it says directly that he was never seen again. Okay, so we see these kind of two of these kind of dominant social structures, and how do they influence Miss Emily's actions to kill Homer Barron? Well, Miss Emily, she realizes that this is probably it. Homer Barron is going to be the one. There are fewer and fewer opportunities for her to move on or to marry with someone. And we see the author describe Homer Barron as a man's man. He likes hanging out with the guys, and, you know, he's just a man's man, confirmed bachelor. And some people have read that to mean that he was homosexual. I am not sure. I think you could make an argument for that, but for the moment, we'll assume that he was heterosexual, but that he just did not want to marry Miss Emily. And so Miss Emily decides that because of this kind of social structure, that she'll never be able to this is really it's close to the last chance, if not the last chance, that her father has already left her destitute with nothing but this house. She's, you know, been dropped from this higher level position in the town. This idea of she was once something great, and now that is gone. Now her father's gone, and so this last kind of opportunity has presented itself, and that now that opportunity may simply disappear. She may not be able to marry him, and that she'll be ever left kind of forever destitute on all fronts, kind of personal, emotional, financial, so on and so forth. And then so she makes this conscious decision, right? That whatever the system is, that she has been victimized by it enough, and that she decides to kill him or poison him, and to stay with his body. And then we don't know exactly, how long it took him to die and so on and so forth. But at the end of this very long period, obviously he was dead, and she was sleeping with him when he was dead, because they found remnants of her hair, on the pillow right next to him. So that's just kind of an interesting way to look at it, that kind of like this way of not justifying her actions, obviously, but kind of thinking about her actions in a more dynamic way, rather than she was just some crazy person that killed him, but looking at the situation that she came from, and kind of trying to more fully understand the rationalizations behind an action which is wholly irrational. Okay, so from there, there's a lot of things we can talk about, right? This kind of really strict southern town. The narrator seems to be one of the town, looking back into the town, looking back in time, kind of gossiping about her, and how does that affect the view of the story? Is the story, if we realize that the story is coming from this kind of alternate point of view, from this kind of someone telling you about this thing that happened in their town a long time ago, do we run this idea of the questionable narrator? Could some of the story have been, we could say, corrupted by the vision of the narrator? Is the narrator always telling us the truth? And if not, how does that complicate the story? And what Faulkner is doing here, not as much as his later works, but what he's doing here is he's playing with this idea of time and of story as well. So we see the story jump back and forth in time, from the present to the past to kind of somewhere in the middle, and then back to the present again. And so how does this kind of jumping around in time and this idea of a narrator who is possibly unreliable, because it's, it seems like a single person from the town and so on and so forth, how does that affect your vision of the story? Does it change the way you see Miss Emily's actions? Does it make you rethink which parts of the story may or may not be 100% the way things really happened? Like if you are the omnipotent, God looking down directly into the house or directly into the town, would things have been slightly different than portrayed? And does that either exonerate Miss Emily further or implicate her more fully as being kind of this villainous creature who's done this monstrous act? And there's a ton of ways that you can go about doing that, about picking out different parts of the story to help illustrate your point. What I'm doing here is I'm giving you kind of essay topics, right? That you can think about this in a multitude of ways, and then simply go back to the story, pick out simple parts, and then really show your vision, show how you are thinking about this story. Yes, I think Homer Barron was a bad guy, and he was going to leave Miss Emily after leading her on, and then the social strata that was involved in that town left her with a little bit of opportunity. So viewed through that lens, I see her not as completely crazy and irrational, but that she has made a very morbid decision, but yet a rational decision. Or, no, that's untrue. I believe what most of the narrator said is very true, that there is no murder is never justified, I don't care under what, and that irrational behavior of this kind is simply unjustifiable through the story itself. Anyway, this is just kind of give you some basic ideas. There is a ton of criticism out there. It's very simple to find easily. Just go to Google Scholar and type in Rose for Emily. You'll find a wealth of information. And if you have any other things you want to talk about, let me know. We will.